Namaste, and welcome to the next episode of Yoga Vasishta. The reason there's no fancy intro in music is that my MacBook finally bit the dust. It had, the typical MacBook video problem 2 years back, and Apple replaced the motherboard for free. Well, that was really nice, but now it's happened again. And the program is finished, so they're not going to replace it. And in fact, that motherboard isn't available anymore, so I couldn't even buy one if I wanted to. That means it's not repairable, and I may have to just sell it for parts or whatever. Meanwhile, I have to just make do with my iPhone and iPad, which is okay, I guess, but I won't be able to give you the quality of videos that you're used to. It's going to be a major expense to get another MacBook. Even if I buy a used one, it's going to be like $500. So if you can, please go on patreon.com/esoteric teaching, all one word, and help us out, please, because it would really eat into my savings to have to buy a new computer or even a used computer at this time. So anyway, today we're going to take a look at a really good question, another great question actually, from our friend Matt in Florida. Hopefully he's not getting rained on too much. But he decided to stay, so okay, good luck, Matt. He's really given us another good question. You mentioned in the latest vids you can't skip ahead in books 1 through 6 because it's context sensitive and you have to advance in a progression. What if you haven't integrated book 1? Should I stop reading ahead? Because I haven't experienced the level of detachment that the Rama character is experiencing. Okay, we understand that. It's not that you can't read ahead, but that to get the maximum benefit, you should realize the material before going to the next book, the next step. If you haven't realized it, it's not a big deal, as long as you have gone through it and you understand it. The idea, of course, of book 1 is vairagya, not exactly renunciation, but detachment. Distaste for the material world. Now, I don't think anybody would be here watching this series unless they had a certain amount of distaste for the material world. Certainly every adult has enough experience of the way this world is to know that it's not really our home. It's not really even a nice place. It's full of suffering and injustice, and bad luck, tragedy, misunderstanding, stupidity, misuse of power, and so many other problems. It would take a long time to list even the major problems. So then what are we doing here? We want perfection. We want happiness. We want peace. And we want full understanding. And we're not getting that here. We want love. We want beauty. We want perfection. That is not to be found in the material world. Because as the Buddha said, the material world has 3 qualities. Anicca, dukkha, anatta, meaning impermanence, unsatisfactoriness, and not self. This world is not self. It's impermanent. And everything about it is unsatisfactory to a spiritual being. So as long as we understand that, as long as we accept that, then going forward, we can read and understand the various teachings. And this will help us. It may not give us full realization, but it will be a step. And after all, Yoga Vasishta is not a novel. It's not that you read it one time and then forget about it, put it on the shelf. No, it's like a reference book, like an encyclopedia. See, I may not even be able to edit all the glitches, so you're just going to have to put up with me for a while. It's like an encyclopedia. It's a compendium of all the relevant teachings around Advaita, which, of course, is the conclusion of the Vedas, the beginning, the middle, and the end, actually, of the Vedas, beginning from the original 4 Vedas, the Upanishads, and to the end, the Vedanta. So, of course, there are other points of view, but all of them are derived from the original Vedic teaching of Advaita. So, therefore, Advaita really is the root teaching, the core teaching, the essential teaching, whatever you want to call it, of the Vedas. And since Veda means knowledge, it is the most important or most beneficial knowledge that one can have. And beyond that, one doesn't have to be very educated to attain the highest benefit in life. But if one knows this Advaita Vedanta, then he can perfect his human life. He can remove all the causes of suffering. Now, what is the cause of suffering? Basically, it is to identify oneself with the material world, the material body, the material mind, and so on. If we fall into this trap of trying to chase different objects in the material world, to possess them, own them, and enjoy them, exploit them and profit from them, we're going to be in trouble. Why are we going to be in trouble? Because our original nature is pure consciousness, Brahman, unlimited, unconditioned, without an object, in eternity, timeless space. Actually, there is no space in Brahman, because Brahman is like a solid mass of pure subjective consciousness. There is no differences, so there cannot be a subjective and an objective. There cannot be a seer and a seen. In Brahman, there is only the seer. So we can understand, in Brahman, there is no action, there is no location, there is no movement, there is no other. And when we speak from the platform or the viewpoint of Brahman, then there is no, not only there is no other, there is no one. Because if we don't need to count to 2, why do we even need to count to 1? So Brahman is also called emptiness, shunyata. And the Buddha approached the same realization by the negative route of emptiness, nothingness, non-being. But it's just the other side of being. So it's really the same realization, just expressed in a different kind of language, using a different kind of logic. Now, that means we are already Brahman. It's not that we have to be transformed into Brahman. It's not that we have to become Brahman. It's not that we have to be purified into being Brahman or realizing Brahman. It's not that we have to add something to ourselves, like knowledge or some additional state of consciousness or something like that. We are already Brahman. Why don't we realize it? That's the real question. And that is what is addressed in Book 1. The reason we don't realize it is that we're all caught up in this material world, identifying with material objects like the body, and identifying with the mind and thoughts like the ego, and so on. And for this reason, we forget that we are Brahman. So what is needed really to realize this Brahman? Well, Ramana Maharshi would say, nothing. You're already Brahman. Brahman's already realized. Confirmed. All you have to do is accept it. Oh, and there's one more thing. Brahman is not only pure consciousness, but also pure will or intention. So in other words, if our intention, if our will is to be identified with the material world, yeah, we can do that. We can be identified with the material world for as long as we like. Nothing's going to stop us because we're free. We're already liberated. We're already realized. We're already completely free. But we're so free that we can bind ourselves. We can choose to fall down into the material world. And many do. Most, in fact. Not realizing that there's another way to live which is far more satisfying, beautiful, free from suffering, and so on. And that is simply to identify as Brahman. This is a tremendous incentive to realize the spiritual teaching beyond it, that I am Brahman, I am pure consciousness, I have nothing to do with this body. This is what brings the mind under control. Until one reaches this stage of detachment and takes a decision, makes a determination, uses his will to control the mind and the body and so on for the purposes of Brahman alone. He is not going to be freed from the karma, the results of his activities. Only one who is actually liberated, meaning has no desire to enjoy the outcome of his actions. Only that one is truly free and is relieved of all suffering, all pains, and all problems, and comes to enjoy the self, the unlimited Brahman, within himself, even in this world. Om Tat Sat. Om Harihi Om.